We had some really good games, but hopefully this is the closest one we have. It will be a best of 5, guys, to determine who moves on to face Zest in a best of 7 grand finals. Maru unable to get there as of yet. Rogue having gotten to the finals and actually won 4-0 against Classic years ago. Can he actually repeat that performance? We're going to find out. Headed into the first map here.
And spawning in the left top side as our Red Zerg, playing for Jin Green Wings, it is Rogue.
In the bottom right, as the blue Terran, he is Maru.
It's always very interesting when you have two teammates that are super high caliber go up against each other. I know that we all had that heartbreaking series when we wanted to see Maru versus Serral at the BlizzCon, and then SOS knocked him out due to cheeky play, just totally knew his teammate. And in this matchup, both these guys have been pretty close, if not the best, when it comes to this matchup respectively. But Maru, he's just got something special about him. He micros better than anybody. He plays those little mind games and such too, but when an opponent knows his mind games and the little tells in his play, it could be a little bit tricky for him.
Yeah, very well could be. I mean, I feel like we look at this bracket, you know, like rewind to an hour ago, we look at the bracket and it's like, you know, Mars has opponent us before. You brought up SOS, that's absolutely the perfect one. But then he really did perform strongly in his quarterfinal match. Like, that was the Maru we expected to see. So if, you know, Serral's now out, then we should be continuing to see the Maru that we still would expect. I'm thinking he's going to make it through, guys, but Rogue, I mean, he just kind of came out of nowhere yesterday and just kind of bopped Dark in that ZVZ, so you really cannot underestimate Rogue.
He did super outclass Dark in that series as well, just very fine timing attacks. I do like the fact that Maru actually opened up with an SCV scout, which is kind of unorthodox, right? But he's been showing this, that he's been truly respecting his opponent, getting the information early, and just making sure that he isn't caught with his pants down. And maybe he won't do that for the rest of the series, but just starting this off, I would class him as maybe not the most experienced player when it comes to playing off Korean soil. Oh, wow, that drone got a sneaky third base there. Maru did try to block it.
Yeah, if you SCV scout, you can see, of course, if there's an early pool or not, and then the Reaper doesn't really have to go to the natural as quickly. And I would say, like, often enough, you actually get a bit of a delay in that third. The Rogue barely getting it down. It's actually really nice. That does, if it didn't, that would extend his third base time by a long time. The Reaper's going to be looking for more, but most importantly, he's going to be looking for information because, yeah, Rogue absolutely has it in him, not just do some early pools, but certainly more of those mid-game attacks. And actually, Nightshade has been the map of many, it feels, Roach Ravager all-ins that I've been seeing in the last month.
You know what I found interesting about that SV as well? Like, the fact that he didn't use it to block the third. Because, like, the Zerg has such an obvious third to take, so that just shows that he's playing so safe and just making sure that he knows what's going on. Producing a second Marine now back at home, that will usually be used to try and deny Overlord scouts and such. It also, you tend to find that a lot of these Korean Terrans do lead into Battlecruiser when they open up with 2 Marines, but we'll see what happens with his tech path. Going for the tech lab on the barracks as well behind all this.
Yeah, after all the hype of the, I guess, like, pre-Katowice, right? Hearing all the Zergs and Terrans' opinions, we really haven't seen any of that mech. Mech is basically dead to me. If Innovation didn't do it versus Serral, then it's not going to happen. But it is something that is possible. Battlecruisers also, for a stint there, was just every single TVZ. Often leans to mech, but sometimes bio. Haven't seen too much of that either. Could be things that we see mixed in here in this best of 5, but for now, it is just going to be Hellion Banshee.
This is super old school. Like, this is like bread and butter TVZ here. You have the Hellion, the Banshee, so he's going to go for some like multi-pronged attacks. An early third as well, so this is definitely leading up into a macro game. And so far, Rogue's reading this quite well. He's just droning up like a madman. Hasn't gone for early spores or anything. Is this a defensive Roach Warren? We'll see.
Yeah, you know, Rogue not having his Overlord in that typical spots near the natural doesn't actually see how fast the third CC is down. Sometimes by seeing the third CC or lack thereof, or even lack of supply depots, you can get a good idea of what it is. But he doesn't actually seem to care so much about that. He is starting a lair. He is getting Spore Crawlers, anticipating perhaps something that he's finding typical from Maru. Yeah, that Roach Warren I guess it's just going to be what he actually chooses to use as a composition.
Yeah, I mean, he's so blind, but he's seemingly making all the right calls here. Queen's in good positions, the creep spread is moving. Even the Roach War in position makes it a little bit trickier for those Hellions to get into the mineral line, and Maru can't get anything done so far.
Very interesting going to Roaches. I mean, of course it is an option, but there's nothing necessary for the early game defense, which he seems to know that. He is not bothering going to Banelings, at least not yet anyways. Double Evolution Chamber is kind of a nice spot to help wall off in case the Hellions do dive forward a little bit. But yeah, Roaches, and this is something now where like, Rogue, yeah, doesn't have much scouting. Apparently actually knows exactly what's going on. Now Maru needs to determine what Rogue is going for compositionally and confirm that. The Banshees would help against any early Roach aggression. And if they stay alive, they could even help against any 1-1 attack.
Rogue does see the Banshee now on the map with that Overlord, nicely placed. And yeah, you mentioned it. These Evolution Chambers, as a Terran, if I put my engineering base there, I'd be like, man, I'm going to lose these anytime soon. But he's just making nice little wall-offs here and there, and he's just playing very smart with his building placement. And Rogue, he's a very smart player. A little slow on the Queen pull here, but quick on the transfuse to make up for it. But a few drones falling here.
I wonder if Maru, like, just bulked up his Banshees because he thought there was no scouting and, like, was like, oh, get him. And then, well, there's a Spore Crawler anyways. So, I mean, 4 drones and a Queen actually going down here. Rogue not feeling confident about going through that choke. It is definitely a good point of attack with the Hellions from the Terran. But still losing a Queen to Hellions doesn't happen too often. In fact, a second Queen might go down.
This is getting a bit dicey because now the mineral line is getting a little bit exposed. He waited with the Zerglings, but the Evolution Chambers kind of work against him here. He can't get the wraparound on the Hellions with the Lings, and now the drones running for their lives, but nice, decent defense by Rogue.
Yeah. I mean, it was a decent enough defense. Like, that was an odd amount of units to lose to those Hellions, but notably that Maru did commit with them, perhaps not seeing really any use of them otherwise, and just seeing an opportunity as well. But they wouldn't really be useful as the game goes on. Sometimes during the Hellbats against a Ling Baneling player, and it's like a little helpful. Against Roaches, not so much. And that's what this is. Roaches 1-1, but also a Nidus Worm, not just to the face, to the third base, but perhaps actually finding access into the main.
This is getting scary because his 1-1 is finishing 2. I mean, just a slight bit earlier than the Terrans, but they'll be matched on that. Still, the Banshees are alive, but with that Nidus, he can get the Queens across the field. Maru's also playing very nice with his building placement. I'm very impressed with both of these guys. Creep spread, but will that really matter if you're denying it when he's going to be at your base right this second? And now Rogue is launching the attack.
Roach should be his name right now, absolutely. Maru did not see that coming. Nothing actually, I guess, alerted him to even have his units in correct positioning. If he did, perhaps he would have pulled back, but he still has this drop going on. Is it going to be enough? They can take on small numbers of Roaches, and actually Rogue wasn't paying attention there, so they really do. The Banshees are here. The Nidus Worm still hasn't been used, but the Queens have walked their way forward to help out here. Oh, and he gets attacked with the Corrosive Biles. That's not supposed to happen.
Absolutely not. That stopped it stopped the Roaches from moving into the natural, but now Rogue's just decimating that third base. There is no mining going on there. One saving grace for Maru is he only lost 16, or rather 19 SCVs now so far. Keeps the third alive, but he has been reset. And back at home, Rogue can now commit to further tech. The all-in has done as much damage as he wanted to. And he can drone up, tech to infestors maybe. He's just in a really good spot here.
Exactly. We use the term all-in, and it's like, but the game went on, like, how was it all-in? Yeah, you do enough damage, and it kind of, normalizes in a way. So one of the big weaknesses of a Zerg, though, after they do these typical, usually ground-based all-ins, right, is that they don't have a lot of anti-air. So Maru, we know that he's very good at multitasking. We know he's good at drop play. He's got to really hammer that anything to actually try and mitigate the damage he just took, as well as being scared of a fully maxed out Roach push again in the future.
Certainly. So Rogue's just deflecting these little multi-pronged attacks, but he does get a cancel on the fourth base, which definitely slows down Rogue. But he is swiftly approaching 200 supply here with that Roach Ravager composition. And he also kind of reset the tank count quite a bit. I don't know how many he has on the field right now, but this isn't going to be enough, I don't think, to really hold off a big push from Rogue.
Yeah, I didn't actually think that many tanks died. It was just like very slow production on them, only off of one as well.
And super supply block for quite a while.
Yeah.
He did lose a lot of depots.
Yeah, exactly. 2-2 is also usually a nice timing for the Terran to hit. their army is supposed to kind of get better, right? The medevacs, the Marauders are added in, the upgrades kick in as well, and they can really take a lot of sustained damage, which is what Roach Ravager is, but only if they have like a somewhat matching supply. We're still talking about Rogue being maxed out against Maru's not even quite 150. He actually gives up on the forward third base, by the way, which I think is the right call.
Seeing a Zerg be off creep, it just shows the Terran that he wants to be aggressive, and seeing this amount of units, it's very scary. But the tanks back at home, they're nicely positioned, but there isn't really enough bio to really help them out, and this is getting really, really bad for Maru. He does get a kill on that fourth base, but Rogue is 200 supply.
That Nidus Swarm almost unnecessary, but will help out. The Evolutionaries do get sniped, so eventually Maru could have a 2-2 upgrade lead, but will it matter? Production is so important for the Terran because all of our production is in that main, and if Rogue is on top of it, he's camping it. Nothing's actually going to be able to collect itself. Maru's going to be down to this army that he's forced to pick up with.
It really doesn't feel like Rogue is losing anything at this point. He's got enough back at home to deal with the drop, even though it is being sneaky getting into the main base. And back in Maru's base, it is just chaos. Maru down half the supply of his opponent, and there is just too much Rogue everywhere right now.
Yeah, this is, yeah, I was going to say, it's a little bit fantasy GG. You're down below 100 supply without doing equally game-ending damage right in the main base. So that tap out is totally understood. Maru just like, that entire game was actually a little bit of lack of scouting from both sides, weirdly enough, right? The Rogue not seeing the Banshees, yet still actually collecting them. And then Maru not seeing the incoming attack, not well positioned.
Oh, yeah, definitely. And like the forward third that Maru took, and then he started getting like the 7th, or rather 6th, 7th, 8th barracks. So we knew what his plan was, that he wanted to do like a very strong 3-base timing there, but Rogue didn't give him the time of day. And this is some of the stuff that can come down to like practice and whatever you, right? Where they both know each other's strengths and maybe each other's weaknesses too.
I mean, if we talk about TVZ on that map we just saw, it is so much about the Terran eventually hitting. I mean, maybe they start with like a 2-tank push, but then eventually hitting and just controlling the spare area around the fourth base. I wish we could actually see it again, but if you can keep with me here, that's usually what's so scary about that map. But then Rogue doing that 1-1 attack, Nidus Swarm or not, kind of was the first one to attack. He kind of took away that option from Maru to even be the controller in that game, which Maru just did not anticipate. Looking very disappointed in that game.
Yeah, like that's not the Maru that we're all used to seeing. Usually he's the one that dictates the pace of the game, but here just absolutely caught off guard there. Anyhow, spawning in the bottom left here, as our Reds are currently 1-0 up, it is Rogue.
In the top right, as the blue Terran, he is Maru.
Rogue's game plan for that, or rather, yeah, his series plan going in with a bit of a sneaky all-in there. I thought that was nice to start off the series against Maru, but that really feels how Rogue's been playing this tournament in general. Like, that series against Dark, every game was pretty much a timing-based attack, and he doesn't really want to let his opponents breathe. He's definitely playing like a strangling kind of a series gamer here, which is really, really cool to see players play the player as opposed to just doing anything.
Yeah, I feel like that has described Rogue in the last few days. He's absolutely been playing the player, and it has worked out really, really well. Getting the first game in a best of 5 won't actually be the end-all be-all, but we still have him keeping control of the series by going for an early pool in this game on Eternal Empire. Maru is going to be sending an SCV, so he won't be taking any unnecessary damage.
And this game, Rogue opened up with a pool first, which is rather cheeky. You know, you can get those 4 links across the map and potentially do some damage to the command center, cancel the SCV maybe. But also what it shows to me is maybe he's played enough against Maru that he was like, this guy, if he loses a map, he'll do like a cheeky 2-racks or a 3-racks here and there. Me going for the pool first, it'll be much better. Even his scouting with the Overlords was just checking all around his base for those proxy rexes. But this SCV, it does its job, because when you play against this, you just keep the Reaper at home and you're in great shape.
Yeah, exactly. There is definitely a little bit of like, you could do this, so I do this, and now I could do this because I did that, you know, so on and so forth. But the other thing that can happen when it is scouted for the Zergs, that they can just try and hide those lings. They're not going to be able to delay the command center, but at least they get, you know, a cheeky SCV, right?
And yeah, that Reaper on the map, it did go for where it thought the lings would be, but Rogue's just left him to the top left side of the map, not even bothering to defend his base with them. And I kind of like that, actually. He's just maybe using them for a later date, maybe at the third to see when that goes down, or just later on scouting. He's really respecting this pool first build, like getting a bunker up, maybe assuming that, oh dear, it could be like Roche's and what have you. And that's the kind of thing. A sneaky build in the first game that can throw you off the rest of the series.
Exactly. Like this, it seems like a very small thing, guys. But this actually starts to feel a little bit worse for Maru. He's not confident that he's going to control the game, and Terran is so momentum based. So Rogue, without even truly committing that much, is absolutely in Maru's head. But you know, Maru had to take that seriously because his Reaper could not get the additional scout. It does now, and actually does.
Did it actually get to see the third base? I don't think it did, right? When it hopped down? No. And all the timings are thrown off when you do a pull first, because normally that hatchery, you want to get it down by like the 2-minute 30-ish mark, and when he scouted past there and it still wasn't up, I think the one saving grace there was when he saw only one drone still mining on gas, because that's like, okay, he's obviously not committing to any kind of roach push or tech play, and that can at least make Maru feel a little bit safer here.
Yeah, that is a very good point. Like, that was still worth the Reaper diving in, even though, especially with a guy like Maru, he can actually use it for his Hellions. And in fact, he knows that. So he's going to get another one, actually. That is not something we usually see. It's 50-50, which actually is quite a bit of gas in the early game.
What do you think about this Reaper zombie group? Because getting a second Reaper after your first one dies, I know it like allows the Hellions to sustain themselves a little bit better, given that the Reaper can regenerate if it gets poked by the Queens, but still an unusual choice by him.
You know, we're so used to seeing a Reaper, but really, a Reaper's kind of expensive, guys. Like, it's not something you want to remake, especially in the early parts, when you're not just like free-flowing on 50, 60 SCVs and all your gases. So it's something that he, I guess, just finds a lot of confidence in. This makes him think that he can actually pressure with those Hellions, which he did do a great job of in game number 1.
Oh yeah, defo. And I mean, it's a bit harder to attack on this map, given that Rogue has gone for that block at his natural with the Evo chambers. Again, just smart building placement. This could get a bit dicey, I suppose, if like tanks and Marines are set up behind that, but Rogue, he's just on the ball, it seems, so far.
That Reaper, just to like give some context, would have delayed the tech lab and then also delayed stim a little bit as well. So this is usually a build that has some of the quicker stim you can get. Liberator is not doing so hot here. Lots of Queens were prepared, but the Hellions very aggressively going forward. Only see a handful of Lings. The Evolution Chambers are going to block the obvious pathway, but not the one from the third base. That was the Queen's job, and they failed.
Oh, they certainly did. The Liberator lulled them out of position, and here, this is damage being done that shouldn't be getting done at this point. Lovely Queen block at the bottom of the ramp. The Hellions will get cleaned up, but 6 drones going down along with the lost mining. This actually wasn't too bad for Maru.
Yeah, those Queens, they messed up hard, and then they like quickly recovered before their boss noticed type thing. Like, oh, we got this. That was excellent use of the Liberator, and you know, some people look at the Liberator and it's like, does it ever really do damage? Well, sometimes it just lets other things do damage, and those Hellions at least did something for their sacrifice, but not a whole lot. Behind it, Maru does add on a ton of barracks, 1-1. We're getting into the macro game, and Rogue is going into Ling Baneling.
Yeah, the melee upgrade is very different for Rogue this game. His creep spread is looking a bit stronger this game too. He's putting a lot more emphasis on that. I think he also tried to clear up the rocks at his natural as well, now realizing that he doesn't have to worry about that Hellion stage of the game. And it also, this means that you're not going to get owned later on by a little army behind that ramp. Third base goes down for Maru as well. A little bit of map control still with the Hellions.
So much of the defense of a Zerg is relying on those surrounds. Having all the avenues possible open is very important. And that's actually why Eternal Empire can be an okay map. Even though it has plenty of options for the run-bys, for getting big surrounds, it's also a map that has like high ground 3 bases, right? So you actually can build some decent walls on the Terran side as well, which is exactly what Maru is doing. Not just here, blocking that opportunity, but also to the left. We've seen a lot of great walls come down here.
Oh, certainly. Maru's done a good job of just making Rogue feel a little bit uncomfortable, and ooh, a Spire going down, because 66 drones against 61 SCVs, it's not that much of a lead, I feel, and if there's one thing that we don't give Maru enough credit for, and I feel he does this so well, is the fact that he SCVs up like a madman. His macro truly is impeccable.
Yeah, he is doing a fairly common 2-tank push. I mean, it hits around that 7-minute mark, and usually Zergs are very knowledgeable about that, right? So they want centrifugal hooks. They want that bailing speed done for this, but it is nowhere near done. It's already on the front line, clearing up some creep. Perhaps he's going to buy some time with the Ling run by, but now it's going to turn into a surround.
Oh, I'm a bit scared for Maru here. The tanks are getting surrounded by the Lings. Great focus fire on the Bailings, but it is not quite enough. There was a lot of Rogue, but still, that trade was quite expensive for Rogue as he lost quite a lot of gas in those Banelings and probably wanted to keep more of them alive than he did.
Yeah, but I guess he could have also just made more Banelings to feel more comfortable. That wasn't really that many. He still cleans it up because that surround was so darn good. Oh, there's a couple of additional Hellions. So we look at the gas count. It's really not that bad for Rogue. He's going to be able to make plenty of mutas, but right now, taking, I guess, an overzealous trade there with all those Lings.
Not just overzealous, I can't believe the fact he tried to wrap around that cluster of Marines. Like, that was ridiculous. And 14 mutas on the way, but he's being hardcore pushed by Maru this game, while he's taken a 4th base behind all this too.
Perhaps he should have just invested into more Banelings instead of all those mutas. They'll certainly help out if Maru, especially if Maru just, there's a bit of trust here. There's I trust that you will be able to defend. I got a bit of a bop on you right now, but can I really just dive forward? You're never going to think that about a guy versus like Rogue. So the mutas should get their time to shine as Maru is moving on a creep that's a bit scary, but the mutas, even at that high count, can't really take on Sim Marines.
And getting the mutas seen so early, this gives Maru time to get turrets up back at home. He's adding on the 8 barracks here, or rather going up to that count. And now it's kind of like trying to get back home safely. He knows what his opponent's doing. He knows that he hasn't got a 4th base up yet, running ready. And he just wants to meet up with the rest of his army.
Transferring over to the drilling claws, that does complicate the battles an awful lot. Surrounds, a little less effective as the tanks are especially brutal for that. But also drilling claws can actually help against the muta harassment, of which now it starts up here. He's going to go up to 17 mutas. I assume a +1 attack will start?
It should.
Okay, there we go.
Wow, the mind reader of Zombie Grub here. And now Rogue's in this kind of precarious spot where he's taken a brand new 4th here on the left side of the map, and you see that Maru knows this already, and look how streamlined he is across the map. He's just focusing like an arrowhead, just going straight for the weak spots of Rogue.
Yeah, Rogue taking his base is actually a bit overzealous. We'll talk about that in a second. There is an engagement here. The mutas once again trying their best. When a Thor pops out, eventually one will. They can no longer do that type of micro, but they can't actually take on that army anyways. They're forced to retreat and try and do something else. Maru anticipates this and actually gets so many mutas. Wow, that was excellent positioning for Maru.
It was just great play, great foresight by the young Terran here. He's just tracking down these mutas, and he's losing so many of them as well. And he can't keep up a 4th base. And one of the things about mutaling Bane is you normally have good map control. You're trying to keep the Terran at home with the mutas. And so far, Maru's not taking the bait. He is just all over the place.
And his attacks are just, as you were talking about, they're so pointed, but what they also do is protect his expansion. So when they both expand to the left, that does favor the aggressor, which in that specific instance was Maru. He absolutely had the best aggression, and finding those mutas was just so darn good. Rogue does not want to give up on this type of style yet, though, so he's going to rebuild them. That's very expensive, 100 per muta, and he needs a lot of that into defense on the ground as Maru once again heads to that right side base.
Dropping the natural does keep the mutas over there. This isn't the biggest army by Maru. He's being careful back at home at the same time, using the Marauders to poke a little bit. I love this, the fact that he's pre-spread already, and the micro of Maru is good.
Yeah, that's kind of what he's known for. And it's going to be a good engagement for him. The tank even getting a couple of shots off, a Wood of Mine to fall back to, and continuing to rally forward. There's that Thor I was talking about, so the mutas really can't do that bulking up micro anymore to take out like a couple Marauders here and there. In fact, Rogue just deciding I cannot save that base. A little bit of the Migrant Zerg here is going to expand elsewhere and also attack elsewhere.
Maru's taken out the 6 o'clock base, but he's running the rest of his army to deal with the threat of Rogue. He realizes he's ahead economically, and he's just dealing with this so darn well. That's a large amount of Banelings, though, but can you be making these kind of trades? They're actually not blowing up on it. He even keeps his SVs alive by loading into the planetary to avoid all that madness, and keeps the PF alive, too.
No one ever does that. Oh, my good God. No one does that usually because it's not important, but oh, that looked so fancy. That was such a clean game by Maru. That's the one we saw against SOS. Jeez.
Maru does things no other Terran can. I know there's people like Innovation that's got beautiful mechanics and macros like a beast, but Maru, he is just so intelligent. Every unit, he utilizes it to the maximum, and even a PF can be microed, apparently, so that's awesome to see.
Yeah, of course, that was already looking bad as an attack from Rogue because Maru did have enough army. Like, if you can trade out swiftly and then return home, it might be worth the cancel of the 5th and the kill on the 4th, but he wasn't even going to get it. Maru had enough defending and attacking. He was all over the place. He anticipated everything Rogue was doing with that style, which, by the way, like, can get very snowbally. You know, like, if the mutas actually do some serious damage, if he doesn't take as much damage around that third base, you know, what have you, suddenly he's in control. But the Terran doing an excellent job there, has tied up the series.
It was super crystal clean by Maru as well. Never went overly eager. He would take out a base, then retreat off the creep entirely. He wouldn't, like, you see a lot of Terrans that kind of move in thinking like, oh yeah, I'm so ahead. But he was like, no, 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 no. This is like a very important match for me. I'm going to play it safe from here on out. And spawning in the bottom right of Ephemeron, it is Rogue.
In the top left, his teammate was the blue Terran. He is Maru.
Hydrating there, it is important.
Doesn't need to micro, apparently.
At least not at the start. But Ephemeron, this is a beautiful map, actually. I don't think there's anybody that's like, oh man, I absolutely hate this map. It's quite large, it's spacious, it's good for run-bys, but it's also quite nice for a Terran to set up offensive positions and also dealing drops around the map and such. We have seen mech on this map, we've seen bio. Anything can happen.
Yeah, a very common point of attack here, assuming that we get into the mid-game, nothing early cheese happens, is that the Zerg player has to defend around these bridges off the left side here for Rogue, and that, I mean, no matter how much they know that, every Zerg knows they're going to be hit there. It is so hard to get the creep spread as far as you need. It's so hard to set up those surrounds, and now Terrans are also doing an excellent job about prepping for those surrounds, like finding the attack on the backside, killing that, and then going forward on the 4th. It can be very brutal.
It's also interesting that barely any Terrans, and we've been talking about it all the time, like, none of them have really been going for mech against Zerg, and it's just funny to see that they have so much confidence in bio, even though the Europeans and foreigners have been saying how much mech is strong against Zerg. I love this respect he's shown to Rogue. He just doesn't want to be caught with his pants down at all. The SV's scouting early on just to make sure no shenanigans are going off.
You know, we don't know Rogue's opinion on mech, but I gotta say, like, if I was gonna guess one Terran who didn't want one Zerg to, like, actually face mech, it'd be Maru not wanting to mech against his teammate Rogue, who is very well known for his Swarm Host Midas usage in many matchups. He's quite brutal with it.
This is what I thought he was going to do on the Nightshade map when he was when he scattered with the SV and then didn't block the third. I thought that was very unusual. The drone came over here fairly early, actually, and he knows what was going down. He wanted to try and get rid of that SV with the drone, but it was a little bit too late with that. And Maru, so far, this is it's an annoying position to be in as a Zerg player.
Yeah, again, he didn't have to worry about having the Reaper directly to the natural because that SV did scouting for him. So now he's blocked out a third. There's also a map that you really can't take another third. Like, you don't take the forward third here. That would be very dangerous. So the drone's actually just trying to avoid the Reaper. It's not thinking about anywhere else.
Oh, but he has been spotted. Ling's on the other side of the map. Will Maru keep this Marine alive? And yes, he does. So far, he's playing very, very solidly this game. The drone will not survive.
So annoying. I mean, obviously a lost drone, but also going to send another one over here. And it's actually kind of a distance on Ephemeron between the natural and the third. So the Queen also took a while to help out. And Maru is just... he's making so much out of this.
He really is. This engineering bay that he kind of put down here, it has caused so much trouble for Rogue, and he still can't get up his third base. It will happen very soon, I'm sure, but such an annoying start by Maru, and beautiful play by him thus far.
Cancelled engineering bays, only minerals he lost. That's a good trade. He is going into something pretty typical behind this, perhaps once again into the Hellion Banshee. Nope, okay, so it's Liberator with the fast stam that I was talking about last game. No second Reaper this time. Doesn't need it.
You know, also, you talked about that creep spread. It's quite hard to get across to the left side of the map. Given that Rogue had to put his Queen to defend that third, that's a pretty decently energied Queen there. So that creep spread has definitely been thwarted quite a bit too by this early game
Yeah.
tactic by Maru.
You know, usually if it's a normal game where you get third down, like easy peasy, you usually do like creep timber first, I would say. But with all that went on, you really couldn't do that. You need to build just as many drones as possible, try and take some advantage somewhere else, and that's what he did. Evolution Chipper's on the way, a little bit of a wall. The Hellions did get into the natural in the last game, and even bothered him quite a bit in that first game.
Stim does start again for Maru, which is a pretty big indicator that he is going for bio here. A third base also on the way as part of his wall, and the two Marines again, just to deny Overlords and scouting. Liberator is moving across the map. I'm not sure if it was scouted at the natural by Rogue, but he is producing Spore Crawlers at a pretty decent time here and putting them in anti-Liberator spots.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty safe thing to assume because they'll also help against Banshees, which are kind of our two basic openers. A couple people doing fast 3CC, but yeah, our two basic openers. Well, that's a bad timing on the drones.
It certainly is. They're moving. Oh, rather, the Queen takes the first shot, which was good. Nice micro. Is he going to lose that second Queen? Oh, big attack with the Hellions and the drone. I don't know if it was trying to make a building or such, but the Hellions are in the base again, and these drones, they're running for their lives here.
Yeah, there's not too many Lings take out these Hellions, and Queens don't do a very fast job either, so he's going to go after the biggest pack he can find. 11 drones so far before the surround happens there. Maru once again, just the look over here, attack over there.
It truly is. Like, I've mentioned it before, but Maru truly is a puppet master when it comes to making his opponents fall into his hands and doing what he wants to do with them. And then all these Lings now, they're made to deal with the Hellions. Like, he actually had to overmake Lings there. And now they're kind of useless.
Yeah, exactly. They really can't do very much against a wall. Maru actually not going for any type of like early tank production. You know, he has been using the reactor, I believe, from the factory to move over. Is going to have a fairly swift follow-up drop, like 16 Marine drop pretty quickly to really continue to control the game. So Rogue really needs to just like settle down here, like get his feet underneath him because things are going to get heated very quickly.
This is one of those games where Rogue, the one advantage that he really has is that he's going to have 1-1 extremely early. Those Evo chambers went down super duper fast. I'm not sure what he's going to spend his gas on within regards to tech. The mutas didn't work out in the previous game. You usually want to go mutas when you're in a super good spot to keep the Terran back home. But maybe he has to buy time a little bit better here. Ooh, more Hellions.
Yeah, that's interesting. I want to say someone else did this once, and you can use them as Hellbats, but you almost always see Widow Mines from a reactor factory. Well, we'll talk more about that later. The drop does come, and Rogue, no cancel on that fourth base. He was focusing on this run by. He will grab a few SCVs, but is that worth the 300 minerals? Not so much.
No, definitely not. Nope. When it comes to trying to take your fourth base, and look, he's gone for the fourth base on the right side of the map. It feels like Maru has done such a darn good job of just taking out the expos of Rogue and forcing him to take expos that he really doesn't want to take.
Still continuing with Hellion production, by the way. Like, this was something that, gosh, I remember like Flash tried using this, you know, when people thought it might be good. It doesn't add enough splash. It's technically splash, but it's just not enough. And they're also pretty susceptible to banelings as well. So this is just going to be very weird. You can actually use them. You know what? Forget about that. Huge run by as the natural is wide open. Maru sees it, but doesn't have a lot to deal with it. So he's trying to pull the SCVs preemptively. And that is apparently good enough. Rogue has to leave. It's
a super decent pull. On the other side of the map, Maru moving in with a Hellbat squad and the Marines taking out more Overlords. Rogue's been supply blocked for quite some time, and he's further supply blocked. The drones all clumped up. The Marines absolutely murdering the drone line of Rogue.
There's so few banelings left over. Certainly with only two, Maru could target fire that, or just simply let the Hellbats on the ramp take care of it. And that's exactly what he's going to do. A brutal position here as Maru storms into the main base. The Queen's trying desperately to tackle the medevac to at least ensure that the Marines will die, but no, they will not. Maru with a 2-1 victory here. That is a great start in the series.
Super clean play by Maru, and the way that he's using his army, even going for like a slightly unusual composition there, but hitting such a clean timing, it really felt like he knew exactly how Rogue was going to play with just this mass Ling style and trying to deal damage there, but none of it seemed to do anything. Even the big Ling counterattack, he killed like 2 SCVs.
Yeah, I can't believe, like, that wasn't the most amount of Lings we've ever seen in a counter, but there were still a lot of Lings, and for him to just SCV pull with like 5-6 Marines and deal with that, it's like, oh, like, why doesn't more people do that?
Yeah, I'm getting ready for all the Terrans back home on ladder, like, yeah, I'm going to do that next time too, and then it's like, everything dies. Yes. It's a lot harder to do than it looks. There was quite a bit of hold position microing just to kind of mess with the Zergling AI and such, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was a very good execution once again from Maru, controlling the game. Can he continue to do so? We'll be heading into game number 4 after this quick break. After a shaky game number 1 where Rogue controlled the flow, Maru snaps back and takes 2 victories that looked so convincing.
Oh, yeah. I mean, like, we were just talking about it during that break. Like, why did he choose to go for the Hellbats? I mean, obviously it was a really good call given that he won the game, but Maru, for Terrans out there, just hits all the right spots. He brings new things to the table, shows us how to play Terran, and does it with such finesse as well. He's got such clean micro understanding of the game, and he's looking very sharp this series. But Rogue, he's got a few tricks up his sleeve. And speaking of the man, spawning in the bottom left of Zen, it is Rogue.
And in the top right, up 2-1, is his teammate, Maru. The guy that makes everyone say, why not just play like him? Why can't you do it?
Why not just have 500 perfect APM? You know, like, it's so hard to emulate his play. He's one of the guys that's just like, I don't know how he does it, but he does everything so right. Like when he's on song, and that's a big thing that we have to talk about because he's not always the most consistent. During those 4 GSLs that he won in a row, basically, he definitely was. But there are times when he just doesn't bring it to the table. But for this tournament, Maru is just... he's Maru level. He's actually playing like Maru.
Yeah, exactly. He's finally playing like himself. Yeah, that was just a little bit flabbergasted. We do want to make sure to not just like, say that Rogue's already out of it. This is his final life, though, so he does have to bring it to a game number 5 here on Zen, which actually has been kind of... I mean, it's one of our least chosen maps in general, but when it comes to the TVZ matchup, there are a couple complications. As far as the map goes, there's some weird spots where tanks kind of like, sims the AI around. It's really obnoxious. But if you can control your units, which Maru obviously can, then there's some really brutal spots to get up into the Zerg's face.
And Rogue, he's definitely a cerebral Zerg. Like, I think he thinks a lot about the games. He thinks about how to win them. And Zen is definitely a different map than things that we've played on before. I think for run-bys, it's great. For Lings being all over the shop, it's quite a large map within regards to the airspace as well. This is definitely a map that's going to be a bit tricky for Maru going up against such a smart player.
Yeah. But Rogue did at least show us that he has the ability to do something to really shock and awe Maru. And even the start of that second game, I was saying, like, wow, Maru's just being so defensive, really worried. I think he's back to full confidence, but he's still being very careful with the SCV Scout into the block as well. That did end up working very effectively last game.
Interesting choice that he doesn't go for the engineering bay block afterwards this game, because I feel that worked so well on Ephemeron. Nice extractor making by Rogue there, saving his drones, keeping everything alive thus far. Definitely not been as disrupted as he was the previous game.
I'm just trying to think of what Rogue will do here to really mix things up, because Zen is one of our more unique maps. The way that you path through the middle is very obnoxious, especially for the bigger... Oh, are you kidding me? Oh, Maru. He was watching Innovation, apparently.
He is a sneaky, sneaky boy, and this is something that Rogue needs to respect. He needs to find out about what's going on in the base of his opponent. This Overlord is doing the general scout route, which it'll go into the main base, but if he sees a factory and a starport, depending on when the starport gets done, he could probably expect, oh my gosh, I'm just against the same thing, I'll be fine, right?
Yeah, it's very difficult to tell that timing of a building structure. Like, you really can't see that, like, yeah, he knows there's something missing. It's actually looking very normal. He would just love to see it, basically. Now, when this happened to Cyril, he did manage to get a glimpse of it, but then it kind of messed up the defense, the emergency defense that he was trying to get up, the evolution chambers. If Rogue doesn't see it at all, then it could just be like the fastest 4th game.
Wow, a Viking being made with this too. We've got Marines still in production. The Hellions are being made. He's also skipped out on quite a few SCVs here, and Blue Flame does start. This is going to be a scary push from Maru, and this is a weird map. Maybe he doesn't want to play a late-game situation with Rogue on such a crazy map, and this is going to be a lot of Hellions.
Yeah, unfortunately, upgrades will not help you. Won't be even done, but they definitely won't help you. Walling off that natural, yeah, that's a step in the right direction. No, just 2 or 3 Hellions going down there, but there's no wall if you can get on that 3rd, that's for sure. Whereas on Eternal Empire, at least Cyril could have tried. So Rogue just really needs to scout this, and so far, nothing is telling him something's off.
I'm so scared for Rogue. He just went for the double Evo chamber as well. There's no Baneling nest in sight, I don't feel. And so far, everything that Maru showed him, even the Viking here, is going to get a few overlords. Oh, this is such a good scout. I don't know how he sniffed this out.
That's very, very good then. Just something telling him it was off, or just being very proactive, because Maru, of course, can have his tricks as well. Blue Flame is almost done, but the Hellions already moving their way out. Rogue is going to try and wall off. This is going to have to be a very large wall, and he actually does have enough minerals. A full wall off there, but very low health structures.
Both these players have been using their buildings very well in this series. Rogue down a little bit in supply. He needs to stay alive against this push. The Hellbats deal a lot of damage to ground units, but this so far is a very good positioning by Rogue. Reapplying a new Evo chamber, but the Hellbats, they can't really get through. Rogue's doing a very good job of holding this.
He's got so many queens. They don't kill the Hellbats very quickly, especially with the medevac now here. That was missing for a little while. Ling's digging to the main base, but a quick SCV pull, and more Hellions come out. So 8 SCVs, but is that actually going to even up the game as Maru storms into the natural of Rogue?
Oh, he is indeed. The Queens, they're all staying alive. He takes out the medevac. That removes the sustainability of this army. The Roach Warren, it's still not done. Like, I think it actually got cancelled by this little Hellbat squad, but Rogue is cleaning up the push of Maru while dealing SCV damage, but that is not the end of it yet. More Hellions do join the fray and move into the third base.
Yeah, I mean, at least it will be able to take out any amount of Lings to try and take care of it. It's going to take out more Queens. They've probably spent all the transfuse they've ever had. Drones actually boldly go back to mining, but he needs that Roach Warren. It's so close to finishing. It's not done. The Queens have to micro, and they are buying a lot of time. It looks like Maru has fixed his wall problem from earlier and is looking to get a couple more drones.
Oh, these two Hellbats did quite a lot. That one Hellion over there trying to take out an Evo chamber. Evo chambers everywhere, like throughout Rogue's base. Oh, what a crazy start to this game.
Yeah, I thought that was going to be it, man, but the Ling scouting and then just actually being able to get the wall for that long. And his queen count actually was far higher than I anticipated. He brought all of his queens forward. None were stuck in the main or the natural, and they eventually were able to tear down those Hellbats. Very nice control there from Rogue in a very desperate panic situation.
Yeah, super clean SimCity and super quick reactions to all of that as well. I really thought he was going to die against that attack, but he did that about as well as he could. Now we're getting on to the rest of the game where Maru, despite investing in that Blue Flame Hellion, is going for a follow-up with 5 barracks behind this and tank production. I do believe he's got his 3rd CC at his natural base.
Yeah, he does. So he'll be moving that over soon. With Hellion still available, like he wouldn't... Oh, the other 3rd, okay. He doesn't really have to worry about Ling run by so much, but I do want to point out that Roach Warren seemed a bit desperate, little last second. He did actually commit to +1 missile. Like, that was intentional before it even started, it looked like. So he will be going into Roaches. He does have an upgrade lead. Does he have any opportunity to use it, though, in the next couple minutes?
Is this a blind spot for Rogue? Oh, I think he has seen it. Okay, that could have been dicey. The Blue Flame Hellions still deal a lot of damage to Lings and a lot of damage to drones. Oh, has to leave 2 of those guys behind, but they don't die without getting a juicy shot off.
He didn't actually scout the production of Roaches. He's seen the Roach Warren, but that doesn't mean that it was... Yeah, it doesn't mean that it was actually being used. It could have been just like okay, I need something against the Hellbats, but it absolutely will be. Perhaps even, yeah, once again, hitting some type of 1-1. It's very weird because +1 was done so much faster, but Carapace is finishing up here. He does go for the Nidus Worm, and Maru could be facing the same situation, a very similar situation, as game number 1.
Yeah, I feel he's in much better shape this game, though. Like, that damage and that chaos early on, he's getting onto really high barracks production very, very early. The forward 3rd that he took, initially I was kind of like, huh, that feels a bit weird to me, but having the wall off at his natural and then having his rally forward, he is playing totally textbook Terran here in that he wants to rally at his opponent, but the thing is, Rogue, I don't think he's going to let that happen.
He's still producing a couple of Hellions every now and again. They are obviously very useful as run-bys. They could be very helpful against a Ling-Baneling composition, but he really needs tanks. If he had gone immediately into a 2nd tech lab for double tank production, I'd be feeling so great for Maru right now. But it has been single tank production. And again, I don't know if he anticipates this attack. He sees it here with a potential run-by and immediately lifts and evacuates.
I love the decision-making by Maru, though. He didn't commit to trying to defend that 3rd. He was just like, oh, so that's what you're going for. I'm a bit scared about those tanks being on the same position there. Easily could be barred down, but Maru realizes that and readjusts.
Yeah, exactly. I was like, okay, those might be broken. But it's not going to end here. The wall is down, actually. I mean, that's very bold. The tanks are in a very safe position, however, and he actually jumps on top of the Roach Army as his upgrade finished. Not combat shields, though. Those Marines very weak.
They certainly are, but the tanks are getting such good damage done on those roaches. A medevac actually falls along with the tank there, I do believe. And Rogue's army is getting very thin. And on the other side of the map, despite defending, Maru going for the drones here. And these are blue Flame Hellions dealing so much damage. But a Nidus in the main as well. Rogue is everywhere here.
I don't think Maru expected the Nidus Worm. He thought maybe he had control of the situation, but that was actually just so much left over in the Nidus Worm itself. It pops out into the main base with plenty of transfuse energy, but the tank's in very good position. His production actually still going strong as the mules drop here. It looks like Maru's going to be able to hold.
That is so many full energy queens, though, and they are keeping each other alive. That tank at the far left side is going uncontested here. Rogue cannot move away from the Nidus Worm. The bio is doing very well. Mules landed at the natural. The third even re-established for Maru. Both these guys, this is like a boxing match here. They're just slugging it out.
This is so insane. If that tank could go down, Rogue would feel a lot better about taking on the bio, but it's not going to happen. He has that upgrade lead, but it didn't end up mattering, actually taking out the Nidus Worm and a queen as well. But Rogue able to escape with at least a little bit of his army. He also took economic damage. It's 3 CC, 30 XEVs versus 3 Hatch, 51 drones.
I guess the saving grace for Rogue here is that he is ahead in upgrades, and soon he's finishing that +2 for his roaches as well. He banked up quite a lot of gas, so he's making a lot of Ravagers, and his army is still pretty darn stocky. And Maru, I don't think he's even got an armory up, so trying to get those upgrades rolling, he's going to be behind for quite some time. Oh, he does have the armory.
Yeah, well, we got it for the Hellbats.
Of course.
Yeah, forgot about that as well. But there's a problem here, not just in the direct fight, which actually Maru is going to take here. Happily, those Ravagers, very weak units, actually. They usually have a Roach protection buffer. They don't have one. They're getting pounced upon here, and they are not holding up.
Wow, this is right before +2 armor finishes for Rogue as well. We see that it's seconds away from being done, but Maru not giving him the opportunity. He is just marching over Rogue, nailing all these really expensive units and Ravagers, and even takes out the Nidus Worm, so that's not a threat for later on either.
He doesn't care about the creep spread here. He's just pushing forward, trying to keep the momentum up. The medevacs, they actually still have a lot of juice. The Marauders here will outlast a lot of these units, but Maru thinks, okay, this is not actually going to end right here, right now, but I do feel confidently for our Terran. Not only does Rogue have to worry about direct fights, as I was just saying, he also has to worry about multitasking with slower units than a typical Lingbane composition.
And while all this is going on, Rogue can't make drones. Like, he's going to be on pretty much the same drone count for quite some time because he has to respect the push of Maru. And the beauty of Terran is you can actually make SCVs at the same time as making your army. So Maru, he's going to continually get a little bit bigger while this is going on, but also he's going to be macroing at the same time. This is kind of risky, though.
Yeah, tank is just getting kind of weirdly AI'd, I believe. It goes going way far forward. By the way, that creep spread is pretty far forward, and Rogue is taking advantage of it to push into Maru's aggressive 3rd CC. The SCV has actually been pulled here, as Maru does not feel confident in the bio he left behind. But again, we're down to just Ravagers, expensive units that don't hold up face-to-face.
No, they certainly don't. That was quite a few SCVs going down, but Maru joins up with the rest of his army. His 2-2 is on the way, so that upgrade deficit will be met up with fairly soon, but there's still quite a while to go. And Rogue, amidst all this chaos, got a 4th base up and running behind all this.
It does feel that if Maru can get to that 2-2 with a decent army supply, that will be game. This composition from Rogue is not supposed to last forever. Maybe it can be helped with fungals. Maybe it can help stall out until you get to a hive, but just being on this composition is supposed to be worse over time.
Oh, so Maru is actually going for the offense here. He feels that he's not in the best spot, and I agree with him. So he's defended and surrendered that 3rd base. He's flying over to the other 3rd base. His mineral patches are getting ridiculously low as well in his natural.
Yeah, I really like that he's gone over to the other base. Like, he's not the one, even with a couple of opportunities here and there, to actually keep up the aggression. But, of course, this Doom drop changes all of that. Rogue, his army's on the other side of the map. He's going to actually fly away from Mass Queen, basically, as, well, his thoughts are probably on this defense.
Maru doesn't actually have that much back at home. Maybe it's enough to clean this up, accompanied by the SCVs being a bit of a meat shield here, but that is a large amount of Ravagers. What is Maru doing with his other medevac squad? Could this be a flank?
I was thinking the exact same thing, but it looks like Rogue is not going to actually set himself up for that. Dragging a drop on top of this army might actually be good enough. He's going to go ahead and do that. And dodging the corrosive vials. Lots of Marauders actually very, very weak on the front line. No tanks available, and 2-2 not quite done.
Yeah, if he can just buy a little bit of time, but Rogue has done such a good job of re-establishing himself. I think that Maru maybe played a bit too aggressively.
Yeah.
He probably felt that Rogue was on a much higher drone count than he was, but Rogue has just got such a big force here, and 2-2 is just completed for Maru.
Yeah, this is maybe a nice timing for him, but is the armor supply enough? It doesn't really look that way. Concave is very good. The roach numbers are getting thin, but Maru is going to tap out. Rogue staying on that low economy and just trying to max out Roach Ravager was absolutely the perfect call.
What a messy game. Started off with the proxy factory that got scouted, and then Rogue doing an amazing hold with the Evo Chambers and the Queens. And Maru, wow, he's going up against a great player, and this is just a great TVZ to watch, because it's not just the standard TVZ either. These guys are definitely playing the player as opposed to just playing TVZ.
Absolutely. That's what's gotten Rogue his victories in the past, is playing the player. It also seems that maybe Roach Ravager is a bit of a secret, as Maru is either surprised by it or by the push itself, or just the tenacity of it, like in that last game where it just kept on coming. But Rogue has tied up the series, and Maru might be thinking about the last time they faced off at IEM. He was actually ahead, and then suddenly it just all fell from his grasp.
It is funny watching Rogue play, because I feel he's very extreme about the units that he makes. It's either a ton of Lings or a ton of Roaches, or when he gets the Muta tech, it was like, no, I'm only making Mutas, no Banelings this game, unlike Eternal Empire. But guys, we are going to be heading into the 5th and final game between these guys, and we are going to see whether it's going to be one of the greatest of all times going to the final, or a possible 2-time Intel Extreme Masters champion. And spawning in the bottom right of Triton, it is Rogue.
In the top left for generic green wings, he is the blue Terran, Maru. 4-time GSL champion, has yet to actually get to those finals for IEM.
IEM's pretty tough, it seems, for the two goats.
Exactly. It would be amazing for any of these players to go up to that finals for a best of 7 against a Protoss Zest. But it would be cool for Rogue to be combating, like, who's going to be the 2-time champion, right? That would be the battle there. And for Maru, can he actually prove himself in the non-GSL tournaments? To be fair, he did actually prove himself in WSG, but, you know, that's not...
Just by the by, by the by. Yeah, the 4 GSL titles and the way that he won them, he was just so dominating for that period of time. Rogue, likewise, when he won, I think it was, he had to win GSL Super Tournament to get to BlizzCon.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
It was something along those lines, and he looked unstoppable then too. But right now, it's beautiful to see that I haven't seen these players in a while. Like, they don't regularly compete in all the online cups that you see. They've really saved everything up for this moment, and it's great to see that they're both seemingly in tip-top form.
Yeah, Maru actually, like, he usually is something that we kind of make fun of for his online performances, you know? He'll come into an online cup and then 2 racks twice and lose, and you're like, oh, are you okay? Like, are you good? And actually just wins GSL that same season, right? But this, for IEM, he did actually go through the qualifier online very convincingly on the North American server, too.
Maru's just a god, man. Like, I really can't hype this guy up enough, and the series that he's delivering so far is really cool, but it takes 2 to tango. The fact that Rogue is not just keep him up with him, but really giving him a super run for his money. I have no idea who's going to take this.
Yeah, I mean, imagine being someone who can actually watch all their practice games, too. Like, oh, gosh. I would pay a lot of money to be able to do that.
You know, you got a business plan right there.
Yeah, exactly, man. Once again, using the SCV Scout to also block Rogue. I mean, he did mess up on Ephemeron. That took so long to clean up. But, you know, last game, he actually ended up being okay against it. It is the NG block this time.
I do really wonder what the decision-making behind doing it or not doing it is, because on this map, I'm kind of like, oh, if I do an engineering bay block, they just take the other 3rd base, whereas on Zen, it's even trickier because you've only really got 1/3 you can take, but so far, it's been doing very well. Yeah. Maybe it came down to like the fact that he needed every mineral to get the 2nd factory up and such.
That's exactly what I was thinking, as opposed to waiting a little bit longer for like a 3rd CC, for instance. He was more worried about the timing, but regardless. To talk about the map for a second here, as we see once again Maru with great micro. The map Triton is actually one of our larger maps, but then just gets very small because the Terrans expand aggressively. So if he were to actually force Rogue here to also expand, quote-unquote, aggressively, which he's not forced to do, but if he were to expand on the other 3rd base option, that would actually put them so close together when it comes to the rally push, the bio push that we do very typically see on this map, and I totally anticipate Maru to do.
This engineering bay blocking, the more I see it, the more I like it. This creep spread, the first tumor has not been put, or it's just been put down at this moment. So that's at like 3:40. A lot of the good Zerg players, they tend to get out that first queen, and yeah, he saved enough energy to get the 2 out. And that's just the amount of good things that this engineering bay block does, and the fact that it's safe as well with the SCV scout early on. I just love it from Maru.
Yeah. He's going to be going into Banshees. Okay, so he did this once before and then started to favor those Liberators. They were very good at distracting. The Banshees ended up not being enough of a surprise to Rogue, if you remember in that first game, nor did they end up helping against the 1-1 Roach push.
Decent scout by Rogue, though. That Overlord came in at the perfect position and will get away by the looks of it. Hellions kind of patrolling the map a little bit. Their job is just to keep creep spread at bay. Is this a 7th and 8th Hellion that he's making here, or?
That's what I was just wondering. I was like, isn't this the point where you stop making Hellions? No, if it's up to 8 Hellions, it is often the intent to be very aggressive. And if you make any more, you actually start, or you're more suspicious of mech. But we know that stim is on the way. So, okay, what's this? An armory at this time with stim and banshees?
Yeah, normally if you're going for that kind of armory, you get it before the stim, right? Because you need the gas as much as you can. There's a third base behind all this too. This is also very old school.
Yeah, exactly. It's also one of those things where that third CC is delayed oftentimes with the Hellbat push as we know it, like the normal Hellbat pushes. But Rogue, I mean, maybe this is all to do with actually keeping him in the dark. As the Overlord tries to get back in, it actually doesn't see very much. The Hellions poking forward, but that's not their true intent. That's more the armory. Like, he's waiting for the armory to do something here.
This is one of those builds that you might be like, man, this is so inefficient. I can do it better than him. But this is also one of those builds where if he's playing against a top-level opponent, which he is, he could be misreading this entirely and not be anticipating the follow-up Hellions or the Hellbat push at all. And the Baneling Nest is only halfway done, and that is far off. He realized that he's going for these evolution chambers very, very early, going for the upgrades, and this is going to be quite a difficult hole for Rogue, I do believe.
The two Banshees are still alive. There's a decent amount of Queens, and yes, absolutely bring that Spore Crawler forward because he also doesn't have that detection, but so many Hellbats on the ground as well. As Rogue is about as surprised as we were to see Hellbats at this time, and more Hellions coming in as well. Will he be able to accumulate enough lings? They're getting barbecued instantly, but the Queens are trying their best to hold on.
Oh, the Queens are falling here. A Hellion sneaks into the third base, even bringing the Marines along for this attack. Back at home, he's getting the +1 upgrades, combat shields, and everything. So it is a good follow-up, but a nice hold by Rogue. And so far, I don't think he lost any drones to that.
Yeah, for not seeing it and not having any Banelings, that was actually a very, very good hold. Like, Maru, he did delay his upgrades, which was already something he was going to be behind on anyways with Rogue's build choice, but he delayed those upgrades. He delayed more what we would usually say important factory production, because we, again, don't usually see Hellions past a certain point unless you're doing mech, but Maru is really, he's flexing with these Hellions, man. He's showing us different ways to use that factory.
I do like Rogue's position in this game, though, and the fact that he's gone for Spire here, too. As you said, Triton's absolutely one of the larger maps in the pool. It's wiggly, too, how the army tries to cross the map, but Mutas are a choice that normally you make them when you're a little bit ahead, so you can keep the Terran at bay. They're not really a great defensive unit. Maru making a tiny little error here with the pathing there on the SCVs, but this is scary. An extra macro hatch as well. So that means that he's definitely going to be committing to a lot of Lingbane Muta.
I mean, now Maru going for the Hellions, like, he could try and use them as Hellions. That can be effective. You can micro a lot with that, as opposed to just, like, A-moving them basically with the Hellbats. And I do want to see that, because I felt like that was something he was going to do the first time we saw this. That kind of ended prematurely. Last game, it was Roaches anyways. But now we get to see what he thinks of Hellions as that micro tool alongside a typical Marine push.
I like that he scanned there.
Hellbats.
Yeah, it is. And this is actually quite a scary push. Look at the 1-1 lining up here as well. He's hoping not to fight before that is done. But is that enough Banelings to take out this army? This is a very scary push by Maru.
Yeah, he needs to split his Hellbats as well. Because again, like, I mean, they're chunkier than Marines, absolutely. Oh, well, SCVs aren't chunkier. Goodbye, SCVs. 10 of them go down. But are they actually enough? When Rogue recognizes this is the competition he's going for, you can just, I feel like you just kind of over-make Banelings a little bit and then get a wrap around, and it's still very successful. Whereas the tanks can be farther back. You don't want to use Banelings on tanks, obviously. Is this actually going to work for Maru? He's really desperate to make this work. He's pushing so far on a creep. The Banelings are done. They have typical hooks, and he is forced to get out of there.
Really good medevac micro on those pickups, though, but it's a great cleanup by Rogue. And I think Maru, the fact that he was pushing so hard on creep there, didn't really realize. Oh, great Widowmine hit. I don't think Maru realized about the the other fourth base of Rogue here.
That is a very good point. That is a very good point. Maybe could have been pushing there instead, at least dealing some damage to it, clearing up creep. as that will be a continued problem. But now he knows, now he's going to direct his push towards this 4th base, not the right side one, and he is into the more typical factory production as I was talking about. Widow Mines is the choice. He's got to, he knows about the mutas. So, Widow Mines, stop slashing back. I don't believe he's gone for any defense against the mutas because he knows they're going to be used offensively first.
Oh, that Baneling, you saw Rogue try to counter micro against it, but almost out microed himself there.
But Rogue does really have to keep these mutas back at home. He can't go across the map quite yet. Maru is really piling on the pressure. He's going to split away from these Banelings, but actually some decent hits, but more Marines come forward, and that is a huge concave from Artarian. Rogue needs to back up, needs to get on his own creep spread.
That is so many Marines. This 4th base of Rogue is being gutted here. Rogue, while being very far ahead in upgrades, it feels like a lot of his gas has gone into units that he can't even use right now, and this is a huge supply block too.
Oh, absolutely huge. So many Overlords around that 4th base. Very surprisingly, he's going to have to make that and be temporarily just stuck on the army he has. Now, with creep spread, with Banelings, you think you have some time, but that Marine is going to go ahead and scout the other base.
I love the way that he's playing. He's playing safe. He's going around the map. He won't get the full scout off here, but maybe he can tell by the fact that these mutas, what are you doing over here on this side of the map? You don't need to do anything here. So I think this will actually provoke Maru into focusing on that left side of the map now.
This is feeling a little more like the Eternal Empire game where Maru is just controlling Rogue. Rogue, if he gets one great muta harassment, if he gets one great run by, can really change the momentum and start to take over the map like he would want with bases and creep spread, but he's got to get that one moment. The mutas are trying to start that here, but a couple of supply depots is not really what he's looking for.
No, certainly, but this is a flock of mutas that you have to respect. The Widow Mines, obviously, they're great against mutas, but mutas microed well with an Overseer can deal with them for sure, and this is causing Maru quite a few problems already. The medevac's getting picked up as well. Not good news for Maru.
Yeah, he is aware of what Rogue was going to try there, and once again, trying to find those mutas, but Rogue's paying attention this time. But also the right side not working out. More mutas are being added. Finally, the upgrade as well. Rogue looking stronger on that army, on the overall supply for sure, although he is once again supply blocked, but still very low on that creep spread. He's not controlling and enveloping the map like this style would want.
No, but he did a damn good job of catching up in supply once again. And it's really good for Maru that he's caught up in upgrades, but on the other hand, Rogue caught up in army supply. He's also got a 4th base running, soon a 5th base as well. And ooh, nice quick cancel by Maru.
That was pretty bold against Mutiling Baneling. You put it on location, but apparently Maru was like, nah, I got this, it's fine. And I think he does, because he has that 2-2 push, right? And this is something that Rogue is once again going to be forced to use everything in his arsenal to defend against, because it is a very scary push. Utilizing this choke once again, he is being very aggressive on creep, however.
This is so darn scary, and he's got this little squad to the left side, so he can see the flank of Rogue, but is this too far forward by the young Terran here?
It's so aggressive, but I guess Rogue is like, his armies are too far apart to actually be utilized correctly. So Maru, even though he's on creep, he actually didn't get surrounded, but this is a counter at this point. So run by at this point. Rogue just looking to get some serious economical damage. He once again got that 4th base. He's going to get a lot of SCVs in the 3rd, and Maru is going to have his momentum completely cut here.
Rogue is playing this beautifully. He's got the mutas being exactly where he wants them. On the other side of the map, he's playing defensive with the Ling and Baneling. He's teching up to Hive while all this is going on. He's also got double the worker count of his opponent. Rogue's in a super good spot now.
Maru's really fallen behind. He's still got an okay army, in fact, even army supply that can do well with the splash, a couple of lucky hits here and there. But that 4th CC on location was so greedy. If he had had it in the main, I think he'd have a 4th CC to actually utilize, even if his SCV count isn't looking too pretty. But now forced to transfer his main over. Things are starting to feel a little bit desperate for Terran as Rogue really takes control.
Oh yeah, certainly. This is a really dicey spot for Maru. He's kind of okay with sitting back a little bit, but the thing is, his opponent's mining so much more than him. He's even floating over his orbital command from his main base here as a 4th instead, just given that he's so low on resources.
And it's terrible when they have to do this, because then like 6 Lings suddenly are a big deal as opposed to a planetary taking care of them. But if you can push from this location as well, they're kind of defending and attacking. It's just that, I mean, the base closest to this push would be the bottom left, I suppose, right? And there's still creep to clean up. That's still such a far away position to attack into. And all this time, Rogue, I mean, he's on Mutiling Baneling, but he has ideas of the future, more upgrades and ultras.
Yeah, and I think Maru did just scan that. He's also got 3-3 nearly complete here, and given that he's only on 43 SCVs right now, his army is massive. We haven't seen it all on one screen yet, just given that it's been all over the map, but this is a very large army. Those Banelings rolling in to the bio. I think he just lost a lot of bio to those Banelings as well.
Yeah, I think he might have looked back at the run by, and that's exactly when Rogue's Banelings hit his face, basically. That is not a very convincing supply, but it is doing something. The Banelings roll in rather inefficiently, but so much of the army is actually on the other side of the map for Rogue, looking to turn this into a base race.
Oh, this is really, really great. Rogue is everywhere. Ling's in every base. Muta's in the bases as well. Maru's trying to do what he can. He has to try and clean up these Banelings before they finish, but Rogue's having none of it. So many Banelings by Rogue just crashing into Maru, and Maru dwindling in supply very, very quickly.
He's currently at half the supply. He's down a ton of orbitals. He's absolutely desperate to make this work on the front lines, but he's on creep. Rogue has plenty of bases to work with, and Maru is forced to tap out. Rogue is going to go to the finals to face Zest in a best-of-7 ZVP to determine who will be our first two-time IEM champion.
What a beautiful story. Both the greatest, or both the GOATs go up against the previous Intel Extreme Masters Katowice champions, but these guys